Antoinette, the female protagonist of Jean Rhys's 1966 novel Wide Sargasso Sea, finds herself in the first part of that novel increasingly alienated from any source of comfort. As she tells her story in first person, we discover quite quickly that she is living on an old plantation in Jamaica. This is right after 1833, 1834, when the enslaved people have been emancipated in Jamaica. And since there is no more slave labor on Jamaica, the estate of Antoinette and her mother Annette is in terrible disrepair. And in fact, the estates of many of the white people who were associated with the sugar plantation world have found themselves, because of the lack of slave labor, in very dire straits. So we see Antoinette cut off from safety, comfort, uh, because her household no longer has any money, and because her household therefore no longer has any social clout. There is a fear on behalf of Antoinette and her mother Annette that they could be attacked by the emancipated black people. I should mention that Antoinette's father, Mr. Causeway, has passed on. So it is only Annette, the mother, Antoine, on the estate, along with several black serving people, primarily Christophine. So Antoinette fears for her life. Also, her mother becoming increasingly distraught as her estate falls into disrepair. Her horse is actually poisoned, uh, becomes withdrawn deeply, and before too long wants nothing to do with Antoinette, and basically says to her, "You take care of yourself." So now Antoinette is alienated from her own mother. Antoinette has a younger brother, Pierre, uh, who has a vague condition, never really articulated clearly in the novel, but it seems that he suffers from some sort of uh, mental disorder. He's not normal, if we use traditional language, and he's not really fit to be a playmate for Antoinette. So Antoinette starts playing with a young black girl, Tia. Now, again, as a young black girl, Tia most likely would have been in a family of enslaved people. On the island of Jamaica in 1833, 1834, the black people were those who had been captured in Africa and brought over to the Caribbean islands to work the sugar plantations. So, in playing with Tia, Antoinette is looking for some kind of connection with the world, some way to feel comfort, some way to feel love, some way to feel affection. Well, the two play together just fine for a while, but eventually, uh, Tia tells Antoinette that even though she is white and therefore in this hierarchy would be superior to Tia, she says, "You're nothing but a white cockroach," and then she actually uses the N word to say you're nothing but a white N word, because Antoinette, as a Creole, exists between the recently arrived Europeans coming to the Caribbean islands because of the sugar trade. She's between that group and between, on the other hand, the black people. A Creole in this novel simply means someone who was born in the Caribbean, someone who is living in a colonial world, white colonial world, uh, and has been born into that world on that particular island, in that particular location. So there's a sense from the newly arrived colonizers that people who have been here a long time are somehow contaminated by the island culture, somehow contaminated by laziness and lethargy and loose behavior. So, in the white world, Antoinette is seen as inferior, a lesser citizen because of her Creole status. But then from the black world, the world of Tia, she's seen as someone who once had power but now does not, someone who was once an oppressor but now is not, someone who was on the side of slavery but now is not. So, an enemy, but now an enemy that has no power. So, Tia feels quite comfortable insulting Antoinette. So, here again, Antoinette is alienated. She's alienated from the black children that she would want to play with to find comfort, and she can't really connect with the more recently arrived white people because she's seen as inferior. So, what does Antoinette do? She looks for comfort to the natural world. She has a kind of she has an intensely imaginative connection with the natural world. We might say an artistic connection. For her, the natural world comes to life. For her, it is alive, and she can interact with it in such a way that gives her a sense of belongingness and vitality. Let's look at this. So we already get a sense when she describes in first person her play date, to use our language, with Tia. The two of them are in a bathing pool. And listen to this language. The two children would play in the bathing pool. Tia would light a fire. In the fire, we boiled green bananas in an old iron pot and ate them with our fingers out of a calabash. And after we had eaten, she slept at once. I could not sleep, but I wasn't quite awake as I lay in the shade looking at the pool. Deep and dark green under the trees, brown green if it had rained, but a bright sparkling green in the sun. The water was so clear that you could see the pebbles at the bottom of the shallow part, blue and white and striped red. Very pretty. Late or early, we parted at the turn of the road. So, this language is lovely, lyrical, open to color and shade, and the layering of the natural world. You have water, and then you have the bed of the water. And notice that Antoinette tells us she's experiencing this in a state where she's not quite asleep and not quite awake. It's a sort of hypnagogic state or a somnambulistic state between reality and dream, between external world and internal world. And again, the language is so evocative. There's a deep dark green under the trees. And then if it rains, there's a kind of a brown green. So notice her ability subtly to distinguish between the different colors of the water. But then if the sun comes out, it's bright and sparkling. And you can see the pebbles down at the bottom. They're blue and white and striped red. So this is someone who has a very sensual relationship to the natural world, someone who has a very, again, subtle relationship to the natural world, someone who definitely pays attention. But again, there's the sense that this lyricism of the natural world grows out of her hovering between sleep and wake, hovering between inside and outside. And later on, not too far later on, she tells us that when the Mason family comes, and the Mason family comes to Jamaica, and they take the Luttrell house, which is just beside the Colibri estate, which is where Antoinette lives. The Masons have come, and one of the Mr. Mason will marry her mother. and Mr. Mason is courting her mother at this time. Mr. Mason gives her a horse so she can go ride again. Her horse has been poisoned, remember? And Antoinette feels especially alienated. No one wants her. No one wants her to be around. So she says, as she's walking around Colibri, she walks around places that she'd not been to before. It's a big plantation where there was no road, no path, no track. And if the razor grass cut my legs and arms, I would think it's better than people. Black ants or red ones, tall nests swarming with white ants, rain that soaked me to the skin. Once I saw a snake, all better than people. Better, better, better than people. Watching the red and yellow flowers in the sun, thinking of nothing, as if a door opened and I was somewhere else, something else, not myself any longer. I knew the time of day when, though it is hot and blue and there are no clouds, the sky can have a very black look. So here's an overt statement that people will let you down. In the world of people, I am alienated. In the world of people, I don't have a clear identity. In the world of people, I am lost. In the world of people, I am not loved. But I can look at the natural world and I can see ants of different colors, all behaving around each other without any sense that color can cause strife. Of course, she lives in this world of colonizers and colonized. White people as colonizers, people of color as colonized, where race is charged and violent. So here in the natural world, no, that's not there. And have these gorgeous colors, just as she saw the gorgeous colors of the water. And then this idea of a door opening to somewhere else. We think of William Blake's famous line in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. So almost as if she's in this dreamlike state again, as she was earlier by the bathing pool, she imagines this magical door opening and she can go through it to somewhere else. This sense of somewhere elseness, getting away from this pain of this world. And what is it that she achieves in this somewhere elseness? I'm not myself any longer. She wants to transcend her ego because her ego is a place of strife, confusion, pain. She wants to transcend it and be no one, no thing, and somehow move in the world as if these red ants move, like these red ants move, or move in the world like the sky that can be blue and hot, but sometimes black. But there's a sense of ease and harmony in this world. So Antoinette's exquisite sensitivity to the natural world, of course, makes what happens to her later all the more tragical, where she ends up with a man in part two who does not respond to the natural world this way at all, and also continues to see her through some of the same lenses through which she was seen before she met him, seeing her Creoleness as a negative, and seeing her interest in the world of Jamaica as a negative, and certainly not sharing her sensitivity to the natural world at all. And so by the time of part three, when she's taken away from this Jamaican landscape and deemed no longer mentally sound, we can think of that in the context of these moments in part one that I've looked at, where her moments where her sense of empirical reality blurs. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. That what we could call psychosis, the inability to tell the difference between what's inside your head and what's outside of your head, is not psychotic at all in these moments of like nature mysticism, where her sense that somehow there is a humanity to nature and a naturalness to her humanity, and her ability to make her inside her outside opens up to this grand, um, embracing vision of nature. You put that way of thinking, that hypnagogia, that somnambulistic position, in another context, it can look like mental illness. And that's part of the reason that Antoinette, taken away from this world of vivid nature, suffers the plight that she suffers as the novel moves onward.